Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. And as you can clearly see, we are not in Florida anymore. We are in Joshua Tree, exploring, doing some hikes. This is my second time shooting this vlog because the first time I did it at the top of our first hike, the camera overheated and it shut off. The news of the day yesterday or the day before is that the federal judge Lopez out of Texas has authorized the liquidation, the breaking up of the assets of Infowars and the parent company owned by Alex Jones. We're at a place called Skull Rock, Jumbo Boulder. It's amazing. There's a massive boulder in the front that looks just like a skull. It's just out of this world, godly beautiful out here. But the update of the day is less so. This is Alex Jones in the Texas bankruptcy proceedings that resulted from the $1 billion in damages he was ordered to pay after being defaulted into a liability verdict by a corrupt judge in a corrupt court system in a corrupt process. Judge Lopez, the federal court judge who's handling the bankruptcy, authorized the breaking up of Infowars and the auctioning off of Infowars in order to satisfy the $1 billion+ judgment Alex Jones was ordered to pay to the family members of the victims of Sandy Hook and to an FBI agent who actually had no family die there whatsoever, but he was awarded $90 million by way of damages because he was made fun of on the internet, accused of being a crisis actor, having worn his uniform improperly, and all of this fell on the head of Alex Jones. For those of you who don't really know what happened in that trial, there was no trial on the merits. Alex Jones was defaulted into a liability verdict on the basis of purported default to satisfy disclosure obligations following discovery. Defaulted into a liability verdict, found liable by way of default. No judgment, no trial on the merits, no jury, no evidence. Liability finding of default because he allegedly didn't satisfy disclosure obligations, which is also a big fat lie. After the liability verdict, there was a trial held on the quantum to be paid, that he would be ordered to pay to the families of the victims. I went to that Texas trial. I saw when they were doing jury selection, they were literally feeling out the jury to see who would be amenable to issuing a wild, ridiculous verdict, some quantum, for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They had a kangaroo show trial on the quantum, and people who watched that trial said, how was he even found liable, thinking that that was a trial on the merits when it wasn't, and if it were a trial on the merits, how he would have never been found liable in the first place. But they bypassed the whole finding of liability by finding a pretext by way of default to default him into liability and then holding a show trial on the quantum and then ordering him to pay over $1 billion. That FBI agent who was accused of being a crisis actor, didn't have a family member die during Sandy Hook, showed up and acted as an FBI agent the day of, he was awarded $90 million by way of damages. Just to give you an idea as to the astronomical, outlandish quantum that was awarded to each of the plaintiffs in that case. Jones and Infowars filed for bankruptcy protection a little while ago. They were trying to structure a deal to satisfy this obscene judgment. And they, from what I understand, had put forward an offer to the victims, the plaintiffs, a very, very I would say incredible offer, for lack of a better word. The amounts were staggering, like tens of millions of dollars to be paid over several years, so long as Infowars and Alex Jones could remain in operation. That would have been the settlement that would have discharged him from bankruptcy. It became very clear during that bankruptcy process that the plaintiffs and or their lawyers, and I suspect it's more their lawyers, were not interested in the settlement. They were interested only in bankrupting Alex Jones and trying to lock him up for whatever the reason. During the trial, there was literally a threat to lock Jones up if he were to say certain things on the stand. They were trying to lock him up, trying to bankrupt him, trying to silence him. Their lawyers said as much during the trial. This is about shutting Alex Jones up. And they were not looking for an amenable settlement for the plaintiffs and their families. They were only looking to bankrupt Alex Jones. So the restructuring process wasn't going anywhere. And now Judge Lopez, the federal court judge out of Texas, says, yeah, come November, you can break up the assets of Infowars and the parent company owned by Alex Jones in satisfaction of this judgment. Do you know how wildly unfair that is for the plaintiffs if the true purpose of this is to compensate them in as much as possible? You're bankrupting a going concern instead of allowing it to continue operations, thus maximizing whatever settlement or whatever quantum the plaintiffs would get. You're bankrupting it and depriving the plaintiffs of what would otherwise be settlement monies, payment monies in satisfaction of the judgment. What are you going to get for the $10 to $15 million in assets of Infowars? You'll get pennies on the dollar as you do out of bankruptcy. And so forcing the sale, forcing the liquidation, forcing the auction of the assets of Infowars is actually against the interests of the plaintiffs, but the lawyers don't care. And I think there will be complaints against these lawyers in the years to come because they're clearly not acting in the best interests of their plaintiffs. They're acting in the best interests of themselves and the politics behind this, which was always to bankrupt Alex Jones. And the amazing thing about this.
Everyone, let's take a brief pause from this vlog to thank our sponsor for this episode, Gut Cleanse Protocol.
Most apples have been grown for sugar content. Look at some of the labels. Sugar bee apple. Now, that ought to tell you what's in there.
Sugar. We're not going to play the entire video. And speaking of digestive issues, this is caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat for the longest time, according to that fraudulent food pyramid. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist that is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain, fatigue, digestive discomfort, stiff joints, and even skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these, quote, healthy foods and that it's far from normal. The good news is that you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain hidden potential toxins. So you can go find this all out for yourself by watching the video at gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. That is gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. Click on the link in the video because after years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informative video to the public free of uninterrupted ads showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. And now back to the vlog.
And the amazing thing about this, they have used lawfare to turn Alex Jones into an indentured servant. For the rest of his life, he's going to owe because you cannot be discharged for certain elements of this default liability. He will not be able to be discharged in bankruptcy for the amounts owed. So for the rest of his life, to the extent he makes more than what can be garnished and seized, because Texas has apparently some good homestead laws where they can't seize your home, they can't seize a certain portion of your salary. If he makes anything beyond that, they will be able to seize that and garnish that for the rest of Alex Jones's life because he cannot be discharged from that. And so they've used lawfare to go after a politically disfavored individual, Alex Jones, to deplatform him, to censor him, to bankrupt him, to use the full weight of the lawfare system, corrupt jurisdictions, partisan jurisdictions, to silence their opposition, to make examples out of them, to suppress their free speech, and to use the law system to destroy them. And where have we seen this happen again and again since? We've seen it everywhere. Trump's lawyers, any politically disfavored party can have the full weight of the lawfare system weaponized against them to shut them up, deplatform them, censor them, etc. They've turned Alex Jones into an indentured servant. Some people are discussing buying the assets out of bankruptcy, Roger Stone, and others talking about pooling assets, buying the Infowars assets so they can continue to operate it and hire Alex Jones as an employee, pay him less than what would otherwise be able to be seized or garnished in satisfaction of the judgment. There's some talk that maybe Elon Musk might get in on this. But the bottom line, this is lawfare that was intended to shut Alex Jones up and never to right the wrongs that Alex may have committed. Do you know, during his trial in Texas, he wasn't allowed mentioning how he had apologized for what he said. He wasn't allowed asserting his innocence. He had to sit there under penalty of contempt and probably jailing, shut his mouth and say, I love Big Brother, I did wrong, and there's nothing I can possibly do to remedy it. $1+ billion in damages. I always make the comparison that the Armenian genocide, the survivors of the Armenian genocide for reparations were asking for $3 billion. They've made a mockery of the court system. They've made a mockery of First Amendment rights. They've made a mockery of the judicial process at large, writ large. And they're turning Alex Jones into a servant for the rest of his life. We'll see where this goes. I anticipate complaints against lawyers by clients in the future when they realize that, my goodness, we turned down tens of millions of dollars by way of settlement over years so we could get pennies on the dollar for his assets. Oh, and by the way, the bankruptcy, the trustee, they're going to make sure that the trustee owns the assets of the parent company that owns Infowars. They were actually trying to claim that they should own Alex Jones's personal social media, his likeness and his image, so that not only could they shut him up on a going forward basis, they could own his voice on a going forward basis. They didn't succeed in that. But it does look like they're going to succeed in shutting down Infowars. The only result of all of this, Robert Barnes and I, who do a Sunday night show, Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, Barnes was saying Jones would have been retired by now had it not been for this lawfare. The end result of all of this lawfare trying to silence Jones, it's going to spread him out and give him an even bigger voice, because you're going to have people now on the internet who are going to spread Jones's message. He's going to have a network of allies that are not going to allow this to be done to anybody. They start with the politically disfavored and then they go to everybody. And right now you see Kamala Harris and Tim Tampon No Balls Walls talking about censoring misinformation. You have Hillary Clinton talking about locking people up for misinformation. It all started with Alex Jones. Might have started with David Icke a little bit earlier, but it really went cataclysmically off the rails with Alex Jones. And that's where it stands right now. We'll see where it goes. In the meantime, enjoy the absolute beauty of God's land. Right there. Boom. Oh.